Merry Vlogmas, everybody. It's your girl T, aka the nappy-headed jojoba, back with another 4C Friday. If you haven't been keeping up with me lately, I've been doing Vlogmas all this month, and every Friday I do a video focused on something that pertains to hair, in particular, my hair and my hair texture. Today we are talking about Curlformers. If you're one of my day ones, you know that I started using Curlformers a few years ago, which was pretty late after people had already stopped talking about them on YouTube. Took me a while to get the courage to use them, and since my first attempt, which was more miss than hit, I've definitely developed a protocol / a lot of tips and steps that I follow to ensure that I get the best possible result on my hair texture. Whitney, Naptural85, is probably the most visible person on YouTube when it comes to Curlformer sets, although I don't think I've heard her talk about Curlformers in quite some time, but her hair texture is completely different from mine, and I can't necessarily port over her tips and tricks to apply to myself. So if your hair texture is a lot more like mine, the tightest, kinkiest curls and coils, perhaps some of these tips will help you in your Curlformer endeavors. My first tip is to make sure that your hair is extremely, really very well detangled. I am primarily a finger detangler, but a lot of you guys know that earlier this year I developed a new method that allows me to use a comb along with finger detangling, and I get a much better result than I did, despite having a lot of success over 6, 7, 8 years of finger detangling exclusively. Now I get the best of both worlds, and I definitely do employ combs when I am installing my Curlformers. Not only do you want to make sure that your hair in general is very well detangled, but I recommend doing one last detangle on each little piece of hair that is going to go into the Curlformer that you're about to install. So if you've got a little section of hair, about an inch wide or whatever, you're about to put your Curlformer in, do one last final detangle, whether that's with your fingers or with a comb. I generally do both, and really smooth those ends, because I do find that the ends tend to be the parts that don't get stretched as well inside the Curlformers, and at takedown you can kind of see that the ends will often be still curly like with your natural curl pattern as compared to the length of your hair, which will be much more elongated. So doing that final detangle on each little piece before you install the Curlformer will make a big difference and help with that. Being careful to also smooth your ends before you actually install the Curlformer. My next tip is to make sure you are using lightweight products that are still effective at keeping your hair moisturized. That might be a bit of a chaotic task for some of us to find a product that is both lightweight and provides moisture if your hair texture is anything like mine, but I will link products that I like to use below. You may want to try a setting foam, which is what I use, or you may want to use an actual old school setting lotion like Lotta Body, which I've actually never tried. Maybe I'll try that sometime on a Curlformer set in the future, but honestly, what I'm using now works for me, and I'm kind of in a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of tease. The key thing here is to just make sure you are not overloading your hair. If you apply products that are too heavy and too creamy, not only will it make your Curlformer set take ever to dry, but you won't get as good a result. Your hair will be weighed down and won't have the nice bounce, and it might even affect the shine potentially. I mean, if you're using heavy oils, which I also wouldn't necessarily recommend, you'll still have shine, but it's still not going to give you a good result, and it will make your hair take way too long to dry. So as I said, I recommend a lightweight setting foam. There are some out there that have really good slip even, which will help you with that last bit of detangling before you install each Curlformer, as well as a lightweight oil to seal if you like. Personally, I tend to just use my setting foam, and then I'll add oil at the takedown process just to seal it in, because my hair usually feels pretty good because the products that I use work for me. My third tip is to make your sections as small as you can possibly tolerate. I know. If you're anything like me, you don't enjoy styling your hair and you want to be done as soon as possible. And one way to be done is to make your sections as big as you can. But that will also hinder your results. Smaller sections means a better stretch per section, as well as smoother hair inside of each Curlformer while your hair is setting. To achieve very small sections, I actually wound up doubling down on my Curlformer sets, meaning the actual packages of Curlformers where you buy a box of 40 or whatever. I have 2 of those so that I can make my sections quite small if I really want to. Or if you're going to go the bootleg route, which I do sometimes because I have both bootleg and real Curlformers, make sure you get yourself a lot of them, get yourself a good number so that you can make smaller sections. I know we don't want to be spending forever and a day installing Curlformers and then waiting for them to dry, but as you get more acquainted with installing them, the installation process does go a lot faster. I can usually get my Curlformers in about an hour, which, considering the detangling factor that I have to do as I'm going along, is pretty good. My penultimate tip is to get the Curlformer as flush to the roots of your hair as you possibly can, while still making sure you're not having any pain or tugging on your scalp. Some people will twist the roots of their hair to get it inside the hook. I don't do that, nor do I recommend it, because then you wind up with weird twisted roots. But that works for some people, different strokes for different folks. I just make sure that I carefully scoot all of my hair strands inside of the hook when I'm working on a section. Then before I actually start pulling on the end of the Curlformer, I basically scoot the hook with my hair inside the eye of it inside of the Curlformer by just pushing down with my finger. And then once the roots of my hair are inside the Curlformer safely, then I go ahead and pull the rest of the hair through. Getting that Curlformer as close to your roots as you comfortably can, I reiterate, will ensure that you get a nice smooth result from root to tip, assuming you follow my first tip and really smooth those ends. And my final tip is to make sure your hair is dry. If you take out your Curlformers while your hair is still even a little bit wet, you have wasted your time. In my very first Curlformers experiment, which I did do a video on, so you can check that out here, you may remember, if you saw it, that my hair looked very poofy, and I thought that it was just because my hair was moisturized, because I had used one of my favorite leave-ins, which was, breaking one of the tips I'm giving in this video, a very heavy product. But the effect was twofold. My hair was moisturized from the product, but the product was so heavy that even though I had slept in them overnight and ruined my sleep, my hair didn't dry properly, even though they had been in probably close to 24 hours at that point, and my hair reverted almost instantly. I had a decent stretch on the Curlformers for about 10 minutes, and then because my hair wasn't fully 100% dry, it was donezo. Nowadays, I do tend to sit under a dryer. I do have a hooded dryer attachment that I use, which I've shown you guys in a video before. I'll also link it in the description box if you want to check it out. I love it because it's a little bonnet that you can attach to a regular blow dryer, like, you know, a yellow bird style dryer if you have one of those. But it's big enough to actually fit my big old dome with all those Curlformers in there, and it's got a strap underneath so it doesn't go flying off my head once the air starts blowing through it. Because I absolutely detest sleeping in Curlformers, I do try to avoid it, and I have sworn, every time I do it, I've sworn that I will never do it again, and then eventually it does happen again at some point. But I have found that with this current routine and making sure I'm using the right products and lightweight products and following all the other tips and steps I just outlined, I am able to get my hair fully dry in about an hour under my dryer, and I get a really nice result, if I do say so myself, as you can see here. That is it for this video. That's it for this 4C Friday. I hope that this was helpful and that maybe you'll get a better result the next time you try Curlformers. If you have a hair texture like mine and you've been struggling, because girl, I know the struggle. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow in the next Vlogmas video. Bye-bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that.